two keywords we introduced. Then hardware, then we went on to use IBM Qiskit and we created an account. And there are two ways to interact with the system, quantum. Then we said there are three basic elements. One is Ignis and Aqua and Air. So Aqua is one where we develop business applications, and Air is the one that offers the hardware to run these algorithms. Ignis is the one where you work on the error part. So we could successfully create certain qubits, and this is basically a syntax of how do you use Qiskit. First session, whatever we said, that is a syntax. How do you create a circuit? And there we said it's better to create equal number of classical bits and classical bits, and for every bit, it is always advisable to have a measurement gate, so that measurement information can be stored back to this. So what we said is from top to bottom in the circuit, and in the results from left to right. That's what we said when you want to interpret the results. So this is what I tried to explain, phase and amplitude. And the word alpha and beta are called amplitudes, because uh, we deal these quantum systems as a one of wave nature sometimes, and sometimes we see them as a particle nature. So that's why this amplitude term comes into picture. And there is a term called phase. So in textbook, people use two words: local phase and global phase. So then we said that there is a Ket notation. So Ket notation refers
0 1 0 क्या लिखा है?
0 0 1 0
लिखो तो सारे नंबर तो लिखो पास.
Okay, so there is a representation called Ket notation. So whenever you have this bar and greater than symbol in between, if you write 0 or 1, so this is Ket notation. A Ket represents a column vector. Then you have what is called as the basis. This is what we try to explain. So any psi, the theta represents how far it is from x. So and by sin theta and cos theta, we get what is its value when you project it onto x and y. And in general, what we said is at a high level, at mathematical level, a quantum state psi comprises of alpha and beta. Alpha represents amplitude and how far it is from 0. Beta represents amplitude, how far it is from 1. So alpha is equal to e power I gamma and cos theta by 2. So this e power term is coming because it's in a complex plane. That's why we are getting this e power I term. And for simplicity, we divided this entire term by e power I gamma. So then what we have is a single e power I pi. So that is called local phase. So to sum it up the entire discussion, what we have is a psi. The psi is represented by cos theta by 2. With here in this example, we are saying spin. So spin up is nothing but 0, and e power I pi sin theta by 2 spin down, that is called that can be treated as 1. Now we said what is the definition of basis? Bases are nothing but a mutually connecting coordinates. In ordinary Cartesian coordinate system, the angle between them is 90 degrees. So that's why we call them as a orthogonal basis. So you can have different bases to measure quantum systems probability. Okay. So then we went on to said that to compute to conduct a computation, you can represent the operations that are needed on the bits or qubits can be represented as a circuit. So on the left part you have classical circuit, on the right part you have a quantum circuit. So the typically the logic is in between these two barriers. So left part of this barrier is input and the right part of this barrier is called measurement state. So, and in between you have a logic. So there are 4 basic steps. So we will define the circuit, add measurement and run it, then read the results. So these results are nothing but the probabilities of measuring the system in 0 or 1. So this is input and now output, and in between you have bit operations. So then we went on to say addition operation, and this is a key takeaway. How do you convert a computation back to a circuit? So that's where we started, and from here we could explain the complexity theory. How many iterations or how many operations you are performing to execute one set of computation of adding two numbers. So then we took up this example of adding 9213 and 1854, each of the strings with length 5. Okay. So if you add 3 plus 4, 7, 1 plus 5 is 6, so 2 plus 8, 7. So then we said that no, if there is a carry, then you need to perform two operations instead of one. That's why we said adding two binary strings of length n requires a minimum n operation when there is no carry. Adding two binary strings of length n requires minimum 2n operations when there is a carry. That's what we said. So to say what is the complexity of this operation, at the minimum it can be n, at the maximum it can be 2n, and this number is represented by big O. Then we tried to generate a table to execute this addition operation. So it takes two inputs, input 1 and input 2, and here in this table just I represented sum, but you can have both the sum and carry represented in the table. Okay, and we could successfully build a circuit in the let me show you that circuit. Maybe that is the first circuit we developed to execute certain computation. So let me open that. Okay, so we started with defining a circuit with the 3 qubits and 2 classical bits. You can have 3 classical bits also, but for us we are interested in reading 2 outputs. Okay, in between you are not interested in one of these qubits, so that's why now we choose only 2 classical bits. And this is the cell number 3 where you are provisioning an input that so the input can be altered by applying NOT gate on 0th qubit or NOT gate on the 1 qubit. So this is how you will get various permutations and combinations of the input. Then we created a barrier, and then we applied CCX gate and then C0 gate. So finally what you have is a circuit that can do off order function, and then you have the results for various inputs. So that's what we said, rightmost digit is a sum, this one 0 is a sum, and leftmost digit is a carry. So you have sum and carry both. So from there we discussed on complexity of computing. So in that we proved as the problem size increases, as the number of strings in the input digit increases, how the complexity, the big O, increases. That's what we have demonstrated. So same thing if I refer to textbook, let me go to textbook portion, because it is easy for you to follow the steps. Okay, so let me. So in each of these quantum computing algorithms, you have something called input encoding. So input encoding is the one where you define whether your inputs are 0 or 1. So then we could successfully created this addition operation of order, and then there is an extension of full adder also, which you can do after the course is over. So full adder you can develop on your own. Then we went for various ways to represent the quantum systems, and one way is to represent the quantum system as a vector. Okay, though that is called state vector. And whenever you give it to the run, after getting the run, there you say whether you want to look at the state vector, or you want to look at the blast sphere. So both ways you can look at them. Or Q sphere. Q sphere is the one that will represent the multi-qubit system, whereas blast sphere can only represent a single qubit system. That's what we said. So there are various notations and some bit of mathematics. How do you add two vectors and how do you multiply the scalar? Also we have seen, and there is we discussed on the orthogonal basis each of these quantum systems. Let us take for example 1 plus 0. This is a system that can, when you project onto the orthogonal basis, then you will see what is the probability of measuring in that state, in that basis. So we did some exploration on creating a initial defined psi. See, earlier we learned how do you create psi using input as 0 or 1. Then from there we said you can have a predefined initial state. So after this, what we discuss is how do you measure? If I want to measure instead of 0 or 1 basis, how do I measure them in a predefined basis? So that is given by the inner product. Basically, if you take x and psi inner product, then you will get the measurement of psi on in x basis states. That's what we could discuss yesterday. Then rules of measurement. See, what is this normalization rule? It tells us that amplitudes are related to probabilities. So we want the probabilities to add up to 1. We need to ensure state vector is properly normalized. So normalization condition is one of the requirements of measurement. See what all, to put it in simple terms, the coefficients of any quantum system, the probable quantum system, if you take two qubit system, what you have is 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. So these four states and their coefficients, when you square them up, they should add up to the 1. That's what this measurement
Sir, there is some noise coming from your end, sir.
Okay, let me close the door. Just a minute. Okay, so what we said is the measurement step. You can take inner product of psi and you can define inner product of psi and x. Then you can take measurements in various various bases. Bases are nothing but the planes are on the axis of measurement. Then what we said is blast sphere. So blast sphere represents the one or single qubit state. So using the, let me take this out. So using the textbook, we could do some operations. So let me do one sample operation on the measurement and rotations in a single qubit system. So that's what we discussed. Then we moved on to, so we were in representation. So these are the various representations. So then what we said is you can have a predefined initial state instead of 0 or 1. Then there is a global phase. So global phase is nothing but the true e power I gamma and e power I delta. Those were the global phases. But most of the times we are interested in local phase, the pi. So, and we have various simulators. So if you read out here, what they say is, you can, while defining the simulator itself, you can say, what kind of attribute you are looking at. For example, if I'm interested in state vector, then that part I can define. So then we try to play with blast sphere and then we discuss some of these gates. So the polygates. So polygates are a defined control, defined rotation about x, y, z axis. So x gate is nothing but NOT gate, and with a predefined 180 degrees rotation around x. Y gate refers to rotation around y, z gate refers to rotation around z, and z rotation you don't feel that rotation because in Qiskit we measure the states in z axis. So then we have what is called as eigenmetrics. This is important. Many of the mathematical discussion in the textbook, wherever you read, you keep encountering these eigen vectors. So what it means is what it means is, if there is a vector v and if you multiply it with m, okay, and you can prove that a matrix, multiplying a vector by a matrix results in a new vector, and that new vector can be represented by a scalar and vector. See, m is a matrix, v is a vector, right? So m into m and v, and lambda and v you have. So what this entire this mathematical description, what it tells is, if you multiply by a vector by matrix, the end result can be represented by a scalar multiplied by the vector. So that's what it is, where this lambda, then it will become eigen value. Okay, and this is very basic mathematical concept. Then we moved on to Hadamard gate. So Hadamard gate is a very important gate. So I think all the algorithms, all the circuits, they use Hadamard gate, because this is the gate that will put our system in superposition. So if somebody asks you to know what is superposition, how do you achieve it, then superposition is a combined state of existing both 0 and 1. So H gate can do that function. Either it can put in plus state or minus state. That's what we can do. So let me try if I can now showcase this Hadamard gate. Okay, so this is what I was referring to. So if you apply Hadamard, then it will take the 1/√2 position. So then you have and there is one more important point is Hadamard gate, and you can express this as sum of other gates also. Then you have P gate, which is called phase gate, is a parameter that it needs. Pi is the angle by which you want to rotate around z axis. So P gate is nothing but rotation around z axis. So this z axis rotation can be having pi by 2 rotation or pi rotation or any predefined angle. So when it is this pi is pi by 2, then that is called as S gate. And if it is pi by 4, this is called T gate. So it is simple to remember. So T gate is a phase gate with phase angle of pi by 4, and S gate is a phase gate with a phase angle of pi by 2. So then to summarize, to generalize the application of gates on the qubit, what you defined is a universal way to represent this gate application, which contains 3 key terms, theta, pi, and lambda. So by changing the values of theta and pi, then you will get various gates. Okay, so this is needed because in reality all that you need to do is just for every computation, just choose theta, pi, and lambda. Then it will automatically do that much rotations. So then there is an important discussion we did. You know, when do you use quantum? So that's where we ended up discussing on the big O notation. So big O is nothing but how many iterations you do to achieve a certain specific computation. So here, for example, search problem, what you say is if your search space is limited, for example, if your problem size is within maybe within the 450, then you will see the time to find the solution by quantum is more than the classical. So that's why quantum comes into picture only when you have a problem that has significant size. Okay, so if you on the extreme left right side you have a problem dimension of 500, then you will see there is significant difference in the time to find the solution. So quantum is not the solution for all the problems. So many of the problems can be solved by classical, and there is a proper mix of classical and quantum is needed to solve some of the problems. That's what we said. So after that we went on to discuss on the multi-qubit systems. Multi-qubit systems are important because single qubit as such cannot help us solving in real life problems. Okay, so maybe on the single qubit you can only achieve a superposition state. So mathematically multi-qubit system is, for example, if I take 2-qubit system, so it has probability of finding in 0 0. If I represent with a00, so you have a vector of amplitudes a00, a01, a10, a11. So this subscript refers to the state and a refers to the amplitude values. So again you take the square of these amplitudes and add them up, they should become 1. So similarly you can have 3-qubit system or 4-qubit system. So if you do this and you can create a system where in a 3-qubit system the amplitudes are given by 1 over root 8. So the same thing you can plot in state vector. So you can apply single qubit gates on the multi-qubit system at individual level. So that is one. So quick exercises, and we can try out these exercises. And you have multi-qubit system. So in multi-qubit system, one requirement why we want to go for multi-qubit system is we want to achieve an entangled state of quantum system. So with this entanglement, some of the problems can be solved. Okay, so that's why you see a combination of Hadamard and CNOT. Okay, so a combination of H and CNOT will make the system to achieve entangled state, and this state 1 over root 2 0 0 plus 1 1, this will represent entangled state, and it's also called as Bell state, okay, in the literature. So to represent graphically the multi-qubit system, we use what is called a Q sphere, and this color represents the the amplitude in measuring in that particular state. So that's what we did. And there is one phenomena called phase kickback. So phase kickback is at a high level, what we can say is phase kickback makes the transfer of phase from one qubit to other qubit. Okay, so it is achieved by 2 H gates and 1 CNOT gate. So phase kickback, you'll find its application in many of the further literature. So after that, what we discussed. Okay, so there are some more gates. We can use them. For example, CC NOT gate, a 3-qubit gate that will really help us to create half order and full order also. Okay, so we discussed on this CCX and C, and there is a gate called swapping qubits. So you can the way you have copy the information, copy the bit information, you can here you have what is called a swap one qubit to other.
Sir,
So
what is the difference between NOT gate and swap gate?
NOT gate will flip. Okay, so if it is 0, it makes 1. If it is 1, it makes 0. Swap gate will not do any flip, but it will copy the same information. See, Q0, Q1, if you put swap, Q1 will, no, it will be swapped to Q0. Q0's information will be swapped to Q1. It will exchange the values,
Okay.
that's all.
Okay.
Okay, swapping is exchanging. So then controlled rotations, these are nothing but R5. So a theta value of rotation you can achieve. See, in NOT gate, what you do is you will turn it 180 degrees, but you can have a specified angle of rotation. Okay, so these are controlled rotation operations. So Toffoli is the one gate, just to differentiate between CNOT and Toffoli. So in CNOT gate, whenever a control qubit is 1, the target will be flipped. In Toffoli, if the two controls are 1, the target will be flipped. So that's why you see, the flip in the Q2 when Q0 and Q1 are 1. So H and T, then what you have, there is some discussion on some mathematical aspect. If you are interested, just do these mathematical operations. See what this entire discussion of chapter 2.5 and further mathematics, what they say is reversibility of quantum systems. Okay, so reversibility means by applying a sequence of gates, your system can be brought back to the initial states. So this is a reversibility condition. Okay, so you can prove this Hermitian and unitary. It's like multiplying a conjugate, then A into A inverse kind of multiplication, then you will get a unitary. So this entire discussion of mathematics, it will prove some of the mathematics behind the qubits definition. Okay, so just go through that whenever you want to go deeper into these aspects. So there is some discussion on classical computation and on the quantum system. See, you keep hearing what is called as oracle. Okay, so what is this oracle? Let me explain. In further chapters also you will find the discussion around oracle. So let me spend some time on that. So oracle is oracle is a black box. Basically, it's a black box. Let us say this is one oracle. So and it will take certain input x, I can say, and this x will go through the function defined by oracle. So this function I can say f of x. So we don't know what is this f of x. That's what the point is. Okay, it will take some input, let us say x, or it can take two inputs. It can take x, y as a input, or it can take x1 and x2 as input, and it will give some kind of output, right? So this is what we have output. So this f of x, let me explain it further, because in algorithms like DZ algorithm, Dash-Josa algorithm, there this f of x function and oracle comes into picture. See, f of x can be any function like x plus 2x plus 3x, or you can have square term or cube term. This is basically one mathematical equation as a function of f of x, and this entire function together is called oracle at a high level. So there are more details to it, but to understand what is Oracle, it takes certain input and throws out output based on the certain equation it holds. So that is what is Oracle. So Oracle, we use it many times because we want to know the nature of certain functions. That's why this Oracle comes into picture. So let us say you have a control system, an electronic control system. You want to say what is the nature of that device. So if I keep supplying zeros, how does it behave? If I keep supplying one, how does it behave? So these are the some of the operations that are done on the Oracle. And one more observation I wanted to give you in quantum systems, you hear what is called as ancilla. This word is popularly encountered in the literature. Ancilla is a additional qubit. Okay, this is an additional qubit that will not directly participate in the computation, but it is there in the circuit, but its result we are not interested. We are not doing any measurement on this ancilla. Even if you measure, you don't treat its value. Okay, so in additional in half order we had one q2 one qubit which did not have any measurement step, so that is called ancilla. So ancilla is a additional qubit. So these are all some mathematical description. Then what you have is quantum protocols and quantum algorithm. This is important. Okay, so see, by systematically following certain steps of manipulating the quantum systems, people have come out with certain protocols, certain algorithms, and that is this set of algorithms could successfully prove the quantum advantage. So just we are spending some time on some basics of what is a quantum circuit. So circuit basically contains certain basic elements like initialization or reset or input. This is the input, and it will have certain gates and it will have measurements. So these are the standard nomenclature of any quantum circuit. Okay, so when you write a larger algorithm, so it should contain these basic elements: input, process, output. Okay, that's what input, encoding, quantum gates, and measurements. So this is one circuit eigensolver. So we are going to encounter what is eigensolver and all. Now we will enter into first algorithm, this Dash-Josa algorithm. This is probably the first example that could really prove the quantum advantage. Okay, so let me spend some time on this. Why and what is needed. Okay, so let us say, and you can refer the literature also. That is really interesting. What is this problem they're talking about? Okay, so it showed that there can be advantages in using quantum computer as a computational tool for a specific problem. So what is this Dash-Josa problem? Let me tell you. So we are given a hidden Boolean function f. So that f is nothing but the f of x, which I explained now. Okay, this is the f of x. We don't know what is the real function, but we know there is some f of x. Whether it is x cube or sum of x terms or cube of x, we don't know. Some idea that it takes certain inputs and it throws out the output. Okay, so this output has binary output. What we mean by binary? It can only throw 0 or 1. Okay, and the input is a string of bits. String. Okay, so what is input? Input is a string. String can be a two-digit string. So it can be 0 0 or 0 1 or 1 1 or 1 0. Okay, if it is a 2-bit string, or it can be a 3-digit string. So in that case, you have 0 year, some 1 year, some 1 year, 0. Okay. So to put it simply, you have a function that will take a string of bits. That's what it says. Okay. This entire discussion, to put it in simple terms, what does it say? There is an f that will take string of bits. That string can be 2-digit or 3-digit or n-digit. Okay, you can have an n-digit input, and it is a binary output. That means it can throw 0 or 1. So what is this problem? That's just a problem. This problem tells how many iterations are needed to tell whether this function is balanced or, okay, let me put it in words. What is this Dutch Joseph problem? How many iterations are needed to declare a function is balanced or constant? This is a problem statement. I'm just using a simple language here. Okay. So Dutch Joseph problem can be put it in these words. How many iterations, how many trials I need to do to declare a function is balanced or constant? Then we need to define what is balanced function. Balanced function. See, balanced function is the one. It will give almost equal number of outputs. Okay. Equal number of outputs. Equal number of outputs. So what I mean by equal number? Let us say for this function I have inputted 0 and 0, and the output I got is 0. And in the next iteration I have inputted 0 and 1. Again I got 0. I got I inputted 1 and 1. I got 1. I inputted 1 and 0. I got 1. So the outputs are balanced. They are equally distributed. Then what is constant function? Every time you keep getting 0. Every time you keep getting 1. Okay. So this is what the problem is. You want to declare whether a function is constant or balanced. So then okay, so you need to define whether it is a constant or balanced. So here in this problem, the classical solution. Okay, so classical solution, how many, this wording is important. Let us say classical, in the best case, 2 queries to the oracle can determine the hidden boolean function is balanced. That is, if you get for all f00 input, if it is 0 and if it is 1, then we know function is balanced, as we have obtained 2 different inputs. So after 2 iterations, you came to know that this is balanced. In the worst case, we continue to see the same output for each input we try. We will have to check exactly half of all the possible input plus 1 in order to certain that f of x is constant. Let us say there are 4 inputs that we are trying. So at least 2 plus 1, that means 3 iterations I need to make to decide, to declare whether it is constant or balanced. Okay, so same is the point described. Since the total number of possible inputs is 2 power n. Okay, for n string bit, that's what we said. If there are n bits, then you have 2 power n possible inputs. So then I need to make 2 power n minus 1 plus 1 trials needed to certain f of x is constant in the worst case. For example, for a 4-bit string, if we check 8 out of 16 possible combinations, we are getting all zeros. It is still possible that 9th input results 1. Then f of x is balanced. probabilistically this is very unlikely event. In fact, we get the same result continually in sections. We can express probability that a function is constant as a function of a. So this entire discussion, what it tells is how many times you need to give the trial of inputs. Okay, if there is a if it is a 4 qubit system, then how many trials you need to make? So the answer is at least you need to check 2 power n minus 1 plus 1 inputs. So if n is equal to 4, so 2 power 8 plus 1, 9 times at least I need to do to declare whether it is balanced or constant. That is where the beauty of quantum algorithm comes into picture. So this Dust-Josha algorithm solves this problem in one iteration. So you don't need, if you are speaking about 4 string length system, you need only one iteration to tell whether it is balanced or constant. And there are a lot of theory involved in this process, how somebody is able to give that definition. What all it contains, let us say. There is n qubit input. Okay, so this is nothing but a multi-qubit system, all initiated in 0. There are n such qubits. This refers to you have n qubits initiated in 0. That's what the meaning of this entire thing. Then h cross n means you apply h gate on all the n's, all the qubits you applied h. Then you take one ancilla, one dummy qubit. Okay, that qubit you initialize in 1 and apply in h gate. So you if a qubit is initialized in 1 and you apply h gate, what it means is you made it to reach to minus state. So after this, what you do is apply this entire n qubits after applying h gate and a qubit in minus state to the oracle. This entire box is oracle. Okay, then you measure the output of this n number of qubits where you applied h gate, and that will solve your problem. That's what it is said. And this entire explanation contains same information more mathematically. Okay, in 5 steps you can understand this, and maybe I can share some of the videos where people have made it very simple explanation. I can share those information. So let us try to use Qiskit. Okay, so using Jupyter Notebook, I'm just trying to run this algorithm. And in the algorithm part, so it takes some time to really understand what is happening, because there is a lot of mathematics that has gone in. So that's why you feel a bit difficult to digest what is happening. But when you look at the output, then you will appreciate that this entire combination of gates is able to solve a problem in better way, more speed, more quickly than the classical computer. Okay, so let us try to implement this entire algorithm. So we are importing all the needed libraries here, and then I'm creating a input register of 3 qubit size. Okay, so our input is 3 qubit. Then you have a oracle. Okay, so constant oracle means I am defining the function as a constant function. So I'm taking a constant function and trying to see whether my algorithm will give same answer. That's what we are doing. So I'm taking a constant function. So then you do same thing for a balanced function also. Then you can try out on this. So and you can take this bit string input. Then you have what is so this entire circuit, it's a larger circuit, and its size increases as per the input qubits. Okay, these are the inputs, and this is what the circuit is. So now at the end, what you it is you perform H operation before you go for measurement. Okay, So let me take this. So then we apply Hadamard before you go for measurement. Okay. These are the measurements we apply. Now the circuit is complete, and we will go and run in the air simulator. Okay. So we are going to use air simulator here. So you can have a generalized circuit also, where you can have n number of inputs, and this entire thing is called as oracle, whatever function we define. So you can run the same on the real device also. So the point is, with this DC algorithm, we can say, given a function, whether it is balanced or constant in minimal, in one iteration, you can declare whether it's constant or balanced. Okay, this is one. So you can have there is one more algorithm, Bernstein-Vaziriani algorithm. So it is nothing but extension of Dust-Jose algorithm. What it means, it takes more bitwise product of input and some string s. So this is similar to that, but it will give the multiplication of x and f of x. Instead of addition operation, it will do the multiplication. So it takes bit of time to digest this entire flow of all the algorithms which we are discussing. So I'm not spending much time on that, each of these algorithm, but idea is to introduce and say there are some algorithms which are already in place, using which you can prove quantum is better than classical computer to solve this set of problems. So just in the interest of time, what I'm doing is, I'm just showcasing the each algorithm and now try to at a high level explain how it will show the advantage. So one more algorithm you have is Simon algorithm. So what is this Simon problem? So we were given unknown black box function f, which is guaranteed to either return 1 to 1 or 2 to 1. So this has certain properties. 1 to 1 means maps exactly one unique output for each and every input. For example, f of x is there. For all these inputs, as the input is changing, you will see various outputs. Whereas 2 to 1 is for every input, you will get the same output. Okay, so there can be two outputs which are continually repeating. Okay. So Simon algorithm could prove there is advantage. I'm not going through each of these details because it needs a lot of mathematical derivation to prove how this is working. So, but the point is, Simon algorithm could solve that in better way than the classical algorithm. Okay, so this is a very involved mathematical process. That's why I'm not going through it. And one important concept in all the algorithms is QFT, okay, quantum Fourier transform. And the way we have a classical Fourier transform, which will convert a time series problem to a frequency domain problem. Okay, so given a time sequence of data, it will convert into a frequency domain as a frequency spectrum. So similarly, you have a quantum Fourier transform. What does it do? Let us spend some time on that. So Fourier transform occurs in many different functions throughout the classical computing in areas ranging from signal processing to data compression to complexity. The quantum Fourier transform is a quantum implementation of discrete Fourier transform over the amplitudes of wave function. It is part of many quantum algorithms that are notably Shor factoring algorithm and quantum phase estimation. See, QFT is a one ingredient of Shor algorithm, and it also participates in quantum phase estimation. The discrete Fourier transform act on the vector, then maps it to a vector according to this formula. See, the whole point is it will take the existing quantum state and try to create a QFT of it. See, you may ask, what is this QFT? What is a simple explanation? See, what we said, whenever you apply a H gate and H gate and C naught, it will try to put the entire system in entangled state, right? So same thing happens here. Okay, so this QFT will just try to put the system in such similar state. It's not entangled, but in that a mixed state. Okay, so after going through this entire mathematical analysis, then you will you can definitely see that the quantum system has moved to one mixed entangled states. So this is the one that participates in the analysis like Shor algorithm or many other algorithms. Okay, QFT and all. So this is the one. Then you have quantum phase estimation. Quantum phase estimation is one of the most important subroutines in quantum computation. It serves as a central building block for many quantum algorithms. So given unitary u, the algorithm estimates theta in e u psi e power I theta. What does it mean, this entire equation? Let me tell you. See, we were discussing about eigen states, right? Okay, so what does it do is, it will doing some operation on the psi, it will try to estimate the phases. Okay, so that's why it is called phase estimation algorithm. Okay, so you can do what is the current phase using these operations, phase estimation, and it will take a lot of time to go through each of these states. So that's why we are not going in detail. But if you are interested, just you can run through all these steps one by one, then you will definitely see. So it's a huge exercise, so it's not that simple to go through each of these steps. So just in this exam, I'm introducing each of these algorithms at high level, and now you can, in the next level course, you can go through each of them. So this is important. Most of you are interested, curious about what is this Shor algorithm. So Shor algorithm is number factoring algorithm. In minimal number of operations, it will factor the given number, and it has a lot of application in cryptography, and the basis, whenever people will say quantum can break the classical communication, so this Shor is one of the ingredients for that. Period finding is one exercise we do. So just go through this entire literature systematically, then you will be able to appreciate the importance of this. So then maybe we can spend more time on Grover algorithm on the search space we are interested. See, what is this Grover algorithm? Let me take some time. Let us say there is a search problem. So I'm trying to do search problem. Okay, so there are unstructured search. Suppose you have large list of n items, and let us say there are 10 students database you have stored, and out of that there is 1/5 student whose record you are trying to search. Okay, so in worst case, you may need to go up to to find the purple box, the marked item, using classical computer, one would need to check average on the average n by 2 of these boxes. So okay, if it is 10 records, so at least 5 records you need to check. worst case. So all n of them on a quantum computer. However, we can find the marked item in roughly root n steps. That means root of 10. Okay, so 3 plus some, 3 iterations. Let us say root of 9 is 3. So roughly in 3 iterations you will be able to find it. That's for the Grover amplitude application trick. What really happens? Let us see. What is this Grover algorithm? What it tries to do is you create n qubits and n states. Basically, I'm not saying qubits, n states, and out of that there is one answer state. Okay, so that state has some amplitude, and first what we'll do is we will try to amplify that particular amplitude and invert. Okay, like a mirror reflection you will take. Okay, so that's what we do. Okay, you take this amplitude and do mirror reflection, then automatically that particular candidates whose value we are trying to search, it will get reflected. So this is entire operation of Grover search algorithm. So there are more steps involved, but let us run it in the Jupyter, then we will see what happens. Okay, so I'm just trying to implement it. Okay, so you can experiment with more number of qubits also, this entire algorithm. So you can get the results, but I'm not doing that. So you can run it on the real devices. You can take 3 qubit system or 4 qubit system. So basically what it is trying to do is it will look at the all the phases, and one phase where the candidates are this particular state, it will amplify. It will take the reflection first and then amplitude. So it will reflect here and then you see the amplification. So you can run with various combination qubits. Okay, so I'm not running this. It's a huge exercise. So, but systematically, if you analyze, you will see, the search can be done in root n operations if there are n records. So then, what we have is quantum counting. So quantum counting, we simply use quantum phase estimation algorithm to find eigenvalue of a Grover search iteration. You will remember that in iteration of Grover search, z rotates state vector theta. So that's what the amplification, the rotation part. Okay. So it's more similar to the Grover application, quantum counting also. So just one important item in quantum communication is teleportation. So in teleportation, how do you break the communication between LS and BA? And I'm not emphasizing more on the communication aspect, but personally I've been using more quantum systems for optimization using eigensolvers and all. So that's why I'm not going deeper in these aspects of classical, the communication part of it. But what all it will do is it will prove that using qubits for communication, it is more secure. And if somebody wants to interfere with this state, okay, so let us say if there is some communication happening between LS and BAM, if somebody wants to interfere here, that particular state will collapse and you will not be able to get that information back. So that's what people have proved, it is more secure. So then next concept that is important, maybe super dense coding. So what is this super dense coding and teleportation? So these two are closely related and at a high level, no, in terms more of general knowledge thing. What is super dense coding and what is teleportation? So teleportation will transmit 1 qubit information using 2 classical bits, whereas super dense coding transmit 2 classical bits using 1 qubit. That's what the super dense coding is. So you have no examples for both teleportation and super dense coding here. Okay, so I'm not running that. If you are interested, just go through this entire steps. Okay, then you have quantum key distribution. So QKD, popularly people call this. It has a lot of application in cryptography. So I'm not venturing into much of these details because I'm not an expert in communication part. So and most of these communication today, the way you saw China, recently our ISRO also conducted quantum communication. So deep inside, these are the some of the applications or protocols they are using. So some of the real life applications just wanted to introduce quickly. What are they? So these are called applied algorithms. That means people have successfully applied them and now found the solution on some of the problems. So one such problem is solving linear system of equations. Okay. So what is this linear system of equation? Let me explain. This is linear system of equations. Okay, so what is this linear system of equation? See, there is a function, maybe it is represented by a1 x1 plus a2 x2 plus a3 x3, that is equal to y1. Okay, so this is small a. You have one more equation that is given by b1, this is b2, this is b3, and this is y2. So similarly, you can have n number of such equations, and they can be represented in simple mathematical way. A matrix A multiplied by a vector X. So a into X is equal to Y. Okay, so equal to this is Y. So you have a matrix a vector X of size n comma 1, and you have one output vector Y which is n comma 1. So you need to invert somewhere this A matrix. That is the problem. Okay, if I want to find X, how do I write? A into A inverse. I'll multiply both sides by inverse, then this becomes identity matrix. Then you have A inverse into Y. The problem is all the matrices you cannot take the inverse. Okay, so let us take this example where, okay, so where you have A, X, and here B is nothing, B is represented by, no, Y is represented by B. So this is the set of this one A matrix and X, and this is nothing but Y, let us say. So sometimes this A cannot be inverted. So you cannot take determinant and go for the inversion of this A matrix. So in that case, it becomes difficult. and it takes a lot of time to so if we just try to understand what it says. A system of linear equations is called S pairs if A is at the most S non-zero entities per row per column. Solving an S pair system of size n with classical computer requires order n sk log 1 plus e running time using the conjugate gradient method. Here k denotes the condition number of the system. So HHL algorithm, these are the three people who came out with an algorithm and they proved that within log n. So look at this. There is n and log n. That is the order of difference this algorithm could show. And there is a lot of mathematical explanation given here, but it tells that a linear system of equation can be solved in more quickly using a quantum computer, and it uses quantum phase estimation and a lot of mathematical concepts are there behind this HHL algorithm, and you can try to solve it. And by the way, if you are interested, just go to Qiskit and go to their GitHub. Let me show you that GitHub. So there you will see all the source codes for all these HHL algorithm and examples also are given. So this is the GitHub repository, and if you look at all the things we have been discussing, for example, if I am interested in the Aqua, let me go here, then you can see all the different areas. Okay, so this is what I was mentioning, optimization. And if somebody is really interested, just go through this entire GitHub repository of the Qiskit. Then you can see various applications. So if I go to optimization, you can see algorithms like QA, OA, and Grover adaptive search. So we'll come back to it in a minute once we complete the application, discussion on the applications. So HHL is one algorithm that will solve a linear system of equations. Okay. Then one more applied algorithm. Just let us see, simulating a molecule using VQE. Okay, so this is a variational quantum eigen solver. So what is this variational eigensolver? See, let me put it in simple terms. Many times you encounter this word VQE. VQE expresses the system as a it's a combination of spring mass systems. That's what you can imagine. Let us say I have one mass and there is one, let us say, some kind of spring, okay, attached to it. Okay, so VQE is nothing but a combination of spring mass systems. Okay, this entire spring mass systems, for this system you can write total energy is a combination of KE, kinetic energy, plus potential energy, PE, right? So potential energy, and this is a total energy, right? So KE and PE, they form the total energy. So if you understand this clearly, there is one minimal energy state. Okay, what is that? There is something called minimal energy state. Minimal energy state. I'm just trying to connect this, physics relation with the, the solver, VQE solver. So it is proved in some of the computations that if somebody can find out the state corresponding to this minimal energy, that is the optimal solution for many of these problems. Problems like traveling salesman, vehicle routing problem. So these are the, some solutions are possible if you can successfully find the minimal energy state. So this entire discussion, I'm not going through each of them, but this solver, quantum eigen solver, is, very famous in some of the algorithms. Okay, so that is one. Then Combi notorial optimization. So where what it means. So searching for optimal solution in a finite or countable infinite set of potential solution. This is combinatorial optimization. So you have set of solutions. See, the way I was mentioning the traveling salesman problem or some other optimization problem where your solution can come from set of predefined range of values. So then you have a maximization or minimization function subject to certain constraints. Okay. So you define what is called Hamiltonian. What is that Hamiltonian? Hamiltonian is nothing but this total energy. Okay, so this is H. Roughly, it may not be equal, but Hamiltonian is the total energy system. And from there we will try to solve it. And of course that will solve
So your voice is not clear, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can see QA being applied in many of these optimization problem. In GitHub also, I can show you some examples on this. After we complete the overview of all the applied algorithms. So this is a QA and graph coloring problem, or if you take node STP problem, you can see the proper solutions that are available using QA. So, and one example I can give. How do I apply this? See, recently there was a challenge, Airbus quantum computing challenge. See, as an academician, you can find many challenges offered by industry as a research problem. Okay, so where Airbus invited solutions across globe. How do you apply quantum computer to solve some of these? Now it's over, but the problem statements are important. So I'll show you few of these problem statements. How do you convert this entire mathematical quantum understanding to solve a problem that has a commercial importance? So here in this Airbus problem, they have an optimization of weight of aircraft. So let me show you here. This problem statement regarding aircraft climb optimization. So how do you solve path for climbing quantum computer? Okay, this is a quantum computing challenge problem statements. And somebody solved this using quantum Qiskit also, and they were awarded some prize money. And especially in CFD, we have a lot of problems where you need to divide the domain. So the domain around the fluid domain around the uh, domain around the aircraft can be solved by using this kind of quantum algorithms. Then there is one problem that was mentioning about using quantum neural network for solving differential equations. So if you are interested, just in the textbook, there is a portion where people were mentioning about quantum network. So let me that neural network problem solved using quantum. So this is where the QML part, quantum machine learning algorithm is picking up. This is there is.
Sir, your voice is breaking in between.
Oh,
At times, like multiple words are not been able to hear multiple words. I don't know. Maybe it's a problem at your end or our end. I don't know.
okay. No,
Slides are also
actually,
not changing.
let me re-log in just a minute. Okay, so I resigned. Maybe you can now see now in better way. Just a minute, let me share the screen. Okay, so this is one interesting area. Recently, we started working on integrating deep learning libraries like PyTorch with the
So your
quantum part.
screen is not visible, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Not yet, just waiting. You can share once again.
Is it visible?
Not yet.
So you can directly refer to the textbook page where I'm speaking. Go to the applied algorithms. There I'm speaking about the neural network integration with PyTorch. Okay, if you are not able to see the screen. Okay, so go to the chapter where I no. Let me give the chapter number also. Okay,
So
fourth chapter.
you can rejoin once again. You just try to rejoin, log out and log in.
Okay. Minute. It's visible.
No, sir.
I'm sharing screen.
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Just refer to the fourth chapter on the hybrid quantum and classical neural networks. So that's where you can see whatever I'm discussing. Maybe I'll do once again.
Maybe it'll take some time probably.
Fourth chapter, I don't know why it is why I'm not able to get. Let me try with one PPT. Can you see this presentation at least?
No, sir.
No?
Not yet.
There's a discussion on how do you integrate neural networks. That's what. Uh,
Your voice is also breaking. Should I share my screen and I'll check?
Yes. Visible now. Let me try out my screen.
My screen is visible.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So now let me come out of this. Now you try, sir.
Can you see now?
No,
What is visible on the screen?
only RK it is written.
Oh.
What about rest of the participants? Is it visible?
No,
No, sir, it is not visible.
No, sir.
If it is not visible to me, means it's not visible to everyone.
Sir, can we log in, sir? Exit and log in. You may get off. Kindly exit and re-log in, sir.
Is it visible now?
No, sir.
No, sir, it is not visible.
Okay, so leave it. See what
Your name RK is written. That's all.
Sir, your voice is not stable.
Okay, so I have net issues also here. No,
Yes.
is it visible now?
No, sir, it is not visible.
Okay, just refer to fourth chapter. Just follow the whatever discussion we are having. This is all about integrating neural network and qubits. This is a more general discussion. Somebody who wants to do quantum machine learning QML applications. And in the 4.1.5 chapter, there is a nice example given on the digit classification problem. How people used qubit and finding the labels for the digits. Okay, 1 0. So and recently there is attempt on using SVM classifier, so QSVM, that is quantum support vector machine also. This is basically, just to give a brief on the QML research area that is happening. So you can have variational quantum linear solver example also here. It is bit involved once just run any classification or any optimization problem or any real life practical problem you take up, and from there you can really see how quantum can really help us. So the way I was mentioning this, let me share this link in the
Now
chat
screen is
box.
visible, sir. Screen is visible.
Visible?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'll come back to the. Okay, see, the point I was trying to tell you is how do you integrate a quantum computer for machine learning application? See, there is a nice example that is shown for PyTorch integration. So PyTorch and Qiskit integration. Let me try out example, a simple a beginner level example. So let me take torch and all the imports. Okay, so then you create a quantum circuit. I'm not going details of this entire function. See what all
Now
you can do. You can try.
your screen has become static now. It's not changing.
Okay. Okay, so
Airbus website you have opened, na?
Okay, let me, yeah.
Airbus.com.
This 5 problem statements you are saying, right?
No, the episode was not found or is unavailable.
No,
so
no.
We are in the site airbus.com is the URL.
Let me reshare. Now?
It'll take some time.
Okay, no problem. We'll wait.
Now it's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So you can refer to these 5 problem statements I was mentioning and just try to solve them as a research topic. Then you will see the potential of this area of applying quantum for optimization or quantum for machine learning. So in the textbook, there is a nice example. This is what I was mentioning on the digit classification using PyTorch and quantum integration. So
Now the screen
lot
is
of
not. Now it's okay. Sometime it is coming. Sometime is it not coming.
yeah,
Now it's
maybe my
there.
network. Yeah, my network is an issue. But no, the point I'm trying to tell you is you need to really go through all mathematics of each of these algorithms. So that is not really in a short span of time it's not possible. So, but as a general user, you may not be interested to know what is happening, but just you may want to use. Then for them, there is a nice library that is dedicated for machine learning. So that is Penny. Penny is a library that is suitable for machine learning problems. Let me go to Penny Lane and show you Penny Lane. Penny Lane is a lane and it is dedicated for quantum machine learning. So you can install using pip command. So pip install Penny Lane. Let me do that. There are nice examples that are given. So pip install Penny Lane. Okay, so Penny Lane installation and using the Penny Lane for some of these problems we can see here. Let me go to some simple tutorial. So then you can appreciate how do we use. So some demos are here. Pennylane.ai, that is a web I'm referring to. Okay, so see he to spend a lot of time for mathematical basis. Just you can use this library and solve some of these problems of machine learning. Okay, that is the beauty of this library. Okay, so Penny Lane is one good place for anybody who wants to do QML applications. This is one. Then you just I'm trying to show you one simple tutorial for using Penny Lane, and you can build complex network using this. Once you understand. So and a lot of literature also these days available on applying QML concepts here. Okay, so maybe I'll stop it here. See, the point is in the textbook, there is a nice explanation for all the real life applications. And in the GitHub also, just now I mentioned, I could show you the applications like optimization, chemistry, finance. So all the examples are available. Even optimization for TSP problem, vehicle routing problem. All the applications are nicely presented here. So you can go to each of these separate areas, or you can directly install Aqua separately, and just go to a particular library for solving some of these problems. So in the example optimization, there is a nice tutorial on solving a graph problem. Okay, so that also you can try out QA, OA and all. Okay, so with this I'll stop it here. Just want to thank you for your time and for last 3-4 days. And if somebody is more interested, have more time, and definitely we can have separate courses which are more involved and which will take more time. And you can reach out to me. Our website is there. You can Google my name, and even somebody wants to write research papers also. I can work with you. We can create more new applications. Okay, so with this, I'll stop it here, and over to organizers.
Thank you, Ravi sir, for your valuable time that you have given to all the participants. Probably you have taken 4 lab sessions continuously. One in between, there was a break in between. On Tuesday, we have got a separate speaker, Professor Harish Sahu from DRDO. Otherwise, continuously you have taken lab session in the second half. And I hope, because many of the participants are the first time for quantum computing, they have to explore and spend time on this, then only they'll learn. So thanks a lot, and probably they will be benefited whatever from your sessions for as far as the research work that they are carrying on in their respective fields. Okay. So thank you so much once again, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'll stop recording.
Thank you, sir.